So you said, again, I want to underline this, that calm is not the opposite of stress. It is the absence of stress. So this is very, very important, that kindness, the experience of kindness is the opposite of stress.
So the feeling of stress is what produces stress hormones. So, adrenaline, cortisol, most people have heard of stress hormones. It's not being in a stressful situation that produces those. It's how the stressful situation feels. Like two people can be in the same situation. You're stuck in traffic, for example. One person feels stressed, and as a consequence of feeling stressed, they will have stress hormones produced in the brain and body. But the friend beside them is going, just chill out, relax, don't worry about it. The stressed person wants to hit them, but they're like, totally said, don't worry about it. And because they're not feeling stressed, there's not any production of stress hormones. So the situation itself doesn't really matter all that much. It's how each person feels about the situation. So coming back to kindness, it's not the act of kindness, it's the experience of kindness, what that feels like, the connection that you get with a person or even an animal. And it's how that feels that generates not stress hormones. I call them kindness hormones. And I call them kindness hormones to draw that parallel because they are opposite effects. It's like a seesaw. And one of the most amazing things research shows is that when kindness goes up, stress comes down. And it's like it's literally like a seesaw. It doesn't mean that stressful things don't happen when you're being kind. It's the experience of kindness takes the sting out of the stressful events and the physical sting as well. So they just don't feel the same and they don't hurt the same. So kindness in many ways, physiologically, for example, stress increases blood pressure, but the experience of kindness reduces blood pressure. But some of the most amazing effects, I think, are inside the brain. Like, we know that the experience of kindness regularly actually causes physical change in the structure of the brain, just like stress does. It's like if I go to the gym and work out a muscle, then the muscle gets firmer and larger. Right. Something similar happens in the brain, but we don't call it muscle growth. Neuroscientists like to sound a bit cleverer, so we call it neuroplasticity. But the idea is similar. So if I did mindfulness, in other words, I breathe and notice that I'm breathing, so therefore I'm being mindful of my breathing, I then work out this frontal part of the brain above my eyes, and it takes it to the gym. So undergoes that physical change. But instead of doing mindfulness, if I instead do what I call kindfulness. So instead of your attention being on your breathing, your attention is on kindness and the experience of kindness. So you might be thinking kindly of a person, of someone, all the reasons why you value a person's experience, a person's input into your life. Something you think kindly of them. You might even recall an experience you had when someone gave you something that made you feel good, or you did something kind for someone. But that experience works out this frontal part of the brain, but there's a slight bias to the left-hand side and a slight bias slightly deeper in as well. Now, these are regions of the brain associated with happiness and joy and even spiritual states of consciousness. So what that ultimately means is as we work out these brain regions, they become more powerful, and it becomes therefore easier to extract happiness and joy out of the backdrop of everyday events and circumstances of our lives. It just becomes easier to experience the positive because of how kindness feels.
Okay, if you like this podcast and you want to see more, just click over here and you'll get to see more clips from this interview. If you just want to listen, well, if you click there, you'll listen to the entire interview available to you on any one of your favorite podcast channels.